About 2 weeks ago, I did a video right here called Microsoft Pluton in the Name of Security, My Butt. It's not the word I used. I actually edited it out so the video wouldn't get blocked anywhere. But I did that video and I had a lot of people that actually backed what I said in the video. And then I had some people that told me that I need to get out of my room wearing my tinfoil hat because Microsoft's outlook on Linux and the way they interact with Linux now is very important to the Linux community. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's not, and I'm here to show you some ways right now that Linux is going to be hurt by what Microsoft is doing. That's what we're going to cover today on eBuzz Central. Now, if you look back at Steve Ballmer's reign at Microsoft, there's not much to be really happy about. And what a lot of people do forget is that 21 years ago, Steve Ballmer said Linux is a cancer. It attaches itself to an intellectual property sense to everything it touches. That's what he said. Linux is a cancer. But over the last 20 years, the PR people for Microsoft have kind of, cozied up to us Linux users and said, hey, we're here for you and we want to make things easier for you, and basically just lying to us. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, I'm going to start with my first example today. Now, the first thing I want to go over is a lot of you out there have heard of Rufus. Rufus is a great tool. There's a lot of people that use Ventoy instead, or maybe a Balena etcher. But Rufus, for me, has always given me the ability to do whatever I needed to do, whether it be a Linux distro or a Windows ISO. Now, the reason I say that is because when Windows came out with all the TPM protection and blocking the ability for some people to put Windows 11 on older hardware, I did a video that basically showed you how you could go into Rufus, disable the TPM requirement, and be able to install Windows on a laptop or a desktop. Well, Microsoft has blocked the ability for Rufus to download the ISO. And if you go over and actually do some of your own research, you'll see that the developers have found a way around the block and have released an update. But Microsoft is going to continually block this because they don't want people downloading the Windows ISO, then being able to block the TPM requirements, because that is essential to what Microsoft at present is trying to do. Now, if you don't believe what I'm saying, let me show you this. Recently, Microsoft has started blocking UEFI bootloaders, enabling a Windows Secure Boot bypass. Now, what is their reasoning for this? What are they telling people their main concern is with this? If you scroll down in the story, it says some signed third-party bootloaders for the Unified Extensible Firmware Interface could allow attackers to execute unauthorized code in an early stage of the boot process before the operating system loads. That's what they're using it. This is something that you need for the security of your computer. This is what they're telling people. You need this. You need to be able to verify this operating system, and you need to be able to verify the code that it's starting with. Now, my question is how much control does Microsoft want over your software and hardware? They already have the software market. Now they're going after the hardware. They want to control every ability you have to do anything you want with your hardware. They kind of want to lock it down. And here's the beauty of it. Microsoft can do this and require manufacturers and dictate to manufacturers what they want these systems to look like and be like before they'll give them a license for Windows. If you do not believe me, please go out there and do the research yourself. It is a step-by-step process of how Microsoft is trying to not control just your software, but the hardware. And it's going to get to a point to where you can't even boot a Linux distro. Don't believe what I'm saying? Check this out. And I'm asking everybody that's watching this video, if you don't believe what I'm saying, go do your own research. It's out there. You just have to investigate. Now, right now, AMD Ryzen Pro chips with Microsoft Pluton won't boot Linux. Did you hear what I just said? AMD Ryzen Pro chips with Microsoft Pluton won't boot Linux. Matthew Garrett, a Linux security specialist, wanted to analyze the implementation of the Microsoft Pluton on the Ryzen Pro Zen 3 Plus processor. Ultimately, this didn't go very well, as he couldn't get Linux to actually install to a completion. And if you go down here, he says, as it seems, the firmware doesn't trust any other bootloaders besides Microsoft's, or any drivers using Microsoft third-party UEFI CA key. In other words, trying to install any other OS that's not Windows won't work. Okay? They've already got the software. Now they're going after your hardware. And they're going to dictate to the hardware manufacturers exactly what the hardware is going to require, or they can't get the Windows license. Now, this just doesn't go towards, hey, you need to have this specific chip. You need to have the Pluton. It's beyond that. Now, Microsoft's control over the hardware just doesn't stop with the internals. It also is going to be a requirement for laptop cameras now. So those of you who go out and buy budget laptops that don't have a camera, or it's got a low quality camera, or you just want to get you a decent little laptop that you can do stuff on. I got laptops that I use that I never even turn the camera on, because I'll find something that's affordable, something that's easier to pay for, and something that's easy to put a decent Linux distribution on and move forward. But you're going to have a harder time finding those more affordable laptops now because of this. Starting in 2023, Windows 11 will require new laptops to have a front webcam. But that's just not the main part of it. Forward-facing cameras will be mandatory, while rear-facing will be optional. And of course, it doesn't apply to desktop PCs. And they're going to have specific resolution requirements. They'll have to have a resolution of high definition or better, auto exposure, and auto white balance. So if you're a manufacturer out there making affordable laptops, or maybe lower spec laptops that a lot of people use to put Linux or something like that on, you're going to have to add these cameras to it. It's going to increase the cost of your production, and then of course it's going to increase the cost to the consumer. I've been preaching this on my channel for a long time. Microsoft wants control over the software, they want the control over the hardware, and they also want to make sure that when you buy that hardware, the only operating system they want you to run is Windows, period. Now, I know we're going to work on this and probably find workarounds in the near future, but the main point of this is showing you exactly Microsoft's steps at what they're doing. They have held our hand for the last 10 years. We love Linux. Linux is part of us. We're going to start our cloud, Azure Cloud. We're going to have Linux involved. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We love the Linux community. And then they start requiring hardware and chips that won't boot a Linux distribution. 21 years ago, Steve Ballmer said Linux is a cancer. 21 years later, Microsoft acts like they love Linux. They don't. They never will. They will use it for what they want to, and that is it. Microsoft does not love the Linux user. They do not love the Linux community. And if it were up to them, every computer sold would only work with Windows. It's just the fact. If you disagree with me, put it in the comments below. Or if you have something else to add to this video, drop that in the comments below.
If you like the channel and enjoy the videos that we're producing, you can support us by becoming a member right here on YouTube, going over to Patreon and becoming a patron to the channel, buying us a coffee, or zipping on over to PayPal and throwing us a donation. And I want to take a little time right now to thank the people that make this channel possible, and that's all of my supporters, my YouTube members, and my patrons. Executive producer, Mislav Krileja. Producer, Mitchell Valentino. VIP sponsors are Eugene Lee, Brian Mitchell, Antoine Wilk. All access sponsors, Mike DePolis and PJ. Sponsors, Cato Gosted, Nitrix Development Team, Chad Jones, David Collins, Marco Lopez, Steve Willard, Eric Crowell, Joel Celerzano, Warlock, Sivius, Art Edwards, Marmaduke, Keith Hefner, and Stein Sailor Odland. Thank you guys, you're the reason this channel exists. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, here are a couple more for you to take a look at. I generally cover Linux and open source, but sometimes I do a little Windows bashing and maybe a little Google bashing as well. As always, thank you for watching my video, and I will see you in the next video.